I was so fascinated that Facebook gaming was so new. I said, there's a market here. And I immediately said, okay, I got to go after Facebook gaming. I got to catch the wave. This is early. Like, Facebook was probably just about 6 months, 7 months old. All that time that I was consuming content from when I was just a kid all the way up until now helped me become who I am as a content creator now. Because I think it's almost like I took a bunch of just the different ways to entertain, because I took it all and kind of put it together into my own form and then ran with it. I'm a big believer in dominating the moment. Back then, the moment was, to me, was when I had like 5 viewers at the end of a game. I made sure to win that game. So to keep those viewers coming back, keep them, engaged. You're doing what you love to do. You're beginning something that is a dream of yours, right? There's no reason to be nervous. Just grind away and just get back to yourself, right? And that was the last time I've ever gotten nervous on stream. I'm gonna continue just to do what I love to do, and that's it. You gotta be yourself. There's a lot of people that get on and they become someone else when they're on the video or on live or on a video. And I'm telling you, man, if you're not yourself, people will recognize it from the very beginning. I don't care if you don't even have a webcam. They can hear it in your voice. They think they're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna quit my job right off the bat and become a streamer. And I always refer against that, completely against that. Streaming is very difficult. Streaming is very difficult. It's a lot more than just sitting here in front of a camera and playing video games. And a lot of people don't understand that until they actually try that themselves.
Welcome to the Becoming a Streamer podcast by Pipeline, where we sit down with your favorite streamers and dive deeper into how they got to where they are at today. My name is StoneMountain64, co-founder of Pipeline, and today we're joined by PicNickbasket's. This dude is incredible, Facebook partner. He's been doing so phenomenal on Call of Duty, Battle Royales in general for years now. And if you want to actually go find him, check him out. It's over at facebook.com/PicNickbasket. If you enjoyed this interview as much as we did, please share it with a friend. This is an incredible story, and without further ado, enjoy the show. Nick, thank you so much for joining in on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure, truly, man.
Before we get too deep in everything, I always like to start personally with kind of where you're at now with your content. Like if somebody was to go to your page, maybe hadn't even seen you before, what are you doing right now on it?
So yeah, right now we're just, we are heavily involved into Warzone, man. I try to dabble into some other games right now, but I'm heavily involved into Warzone, especially competitive Warzone, playing, 2v2 kill races and, or even the time kill races, whether it's, we got, 3 hours, get a certain amount of games, high kill games and stuff like that. So, just competitive high kill Warzone at the moment, man. Just, with a mixture of just shenanigans and stuff like that in there.
And is that, I know you stream on Facebook, obviously, like, is that your main platform? Have you been focusing anywhere else uploading your content, or is there anywhere else people find you?
So Facebook is absolutely the main platform. So I'm actually in the process of talking to a few different editors right now. I've done a little bit of, I have quite a few videos. I think I have like 50 or so videos on YouTube of some different gameplays and stuff like that, man. But the main focus right now is Facebook, although I am posting on everything else, such as Instagram, TikTok, and then even more to be even soon would be YouTube even more. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Do you do any videos on Facebook in particular, or is it mostly your streams? And how many streams do you usually do a day? Or how many hours per se do you do for the content on the page?
I used to actually, back in when I first started streaming, I did post some like offline content onto the page. Some videos that I would actually also post to my YouTube channel as well. But it's mostly just streams at the moment, nothing crazy. And then as far as like, how much I stream a day, I used to split it up. When I first started on Facebook, and this too, is like we could only stream for like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So I would have like multiple 4-hour streams a day. But now where we're able to stream, 12 hours a day, I usually go 8 to 10. Sometimes, like yesterday, I think we did 9. Day before we did 11. So we just use usually a long day and just have some fun the whole time.
That's awesome. And before you got into content creation, I guess like, were you interested? I mean, were you playing gaming competitively? Were you interested in entertaining? Like, was there something there before you even really started uploading and streaming?
Yeah. So I love this story too, because like I've been following content creation for so long. I was watching Twitch before it was Twitch, and I was watching just some of the OG guys on YouTube back in the day, some of the first montages, like X Jaws and T Martin and like, you know, ZZIR Grizz and all these different people back on the OG guys back in the day of COD.
That's what got me into it.
Yeah, exactly. Got me into it then. And I always knew I wanted to have some type, I wanted to do it back then, right? But I couldn't explain that to my parents or anything. And I knew I didn't have the time, nor the money, nor the setup that I could create the content that I wanted to create. And then, you know, a couple years ago now, I found that time, that money, and the setup that I needed, and here we are.
So what's something you were interested in? I mean, were you at school at the time when
yeah, so I graduated in 13, high school in 13, and then I went to college for a couple years, and I finished all my pre-requirements of, like, you know, mathematics, English, communications, all that. And then it was time for me to pick my major. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I had no clue what I wanted to do. So I said, okay, I'm gonna take a year off, and I got a job as a caretaker, where basically I would work 40 hours a week, and I would just I would take care of people that had different disabilities that range from cerebral palsy all the way up to you know, brain damage, right? All over the place. And I did that for a little while, and then I got the opportunity to actually get a different job where I traveled around, and I was basically a contractor for a company that worked with Amazon Robotics and built the insides of Amazon fulfillment centers. Oh, wow. Right? So like where the Amazon associates would stand there and fulfill orders and stuff like that. That's where, like, the areas that they would stand and where the robotics would come to them and stuff like that. That's what I built for them to fulfill orders, right? And all while doing that, I was traveling around. I would travel with two suitcases. And in one of them would have all my clothes. The other one would have a monitor and my PlayStation. So I would be traveling around with it because, you know, we'd be put up in hotels and apartments depending on how long we would stay there. But we didn't, like, half the time, like, we'd have one TV, so I'd have to have my own monitor and then have my own PlayStation and stuff, man. But I was always playing. No matter what, I was always grinding. Grinding. And
so then how did that kind of, like, how did you start to get into content creation from there? Like, were you still traveling at the time when you started uploading, or, I mean, guess what was your initial entry into it?
Okay, as I was saying a little bit earlier, is like, I knew that I always wanted to create content at some point or entertain at some point. And I just knew I never had the time nor the energy nor the money or anything just to really dive headfirst into it like I would want to. And then back in August of 2018, I just came off of a horrific job. It was just a tough job that I was on. I was supposed to have a couple weeks off. And, during that couple weeks off, I was like, well, why, if I'm just kind of chilling at the house, like, why don't I try to do a couple things? So I ended up buying a computer off Amazon, a pre-built computer off Amazon, and just started streaming. I actually started on the laptop first, but I was like, this is not going to work. Yeah. So I got a desktop, started streaming, and it just began from there. And then when I really was so tired of living out of a suitcase, man. I did it for about 3 years. Yeah. I was so tired of living out of a suitcase and just traveling around. Although I am grateful, and that job made me who I am today, and the experiences and everything I learned and the people that I met. But you know, I was so tired of it, and I was ready to do something else. And so I was said, if I'm going to buy this computer, I'm going to go head first into this. And I'm going to, you know, take some time away from this other job. The other job wasn't too happy with me, but luckily I had some really good friends over there that they understood what I was doing. So we just went head first into it right then. And then
where did you start with it? Like, did you start on Facebook? Did you try out Twitch, YouTube, anything else?
Yeah, so I started with Facebook. So funny story behind that is I was actually just scrolling Facebook one day, right? I was scrolling Facebook. This is in the height of the Fortnite days, right? So I was big into Fortnite. Everything was going down with Fortnite, and I was just scrolling randomly. I was chaining videos. You know how you start watching video and it scrolls down to the next video. Well, I actually ended up seeing a streamer. His name was Salty. He's a Fortnite streamer. Oh yeah. And I saw him and I was like, how did this just get recommended to me? And I started thinking. I was like, I wonder. And then I found Facebook gaming as a whole. Started watching you, and I started watching everything else. And I was so fascinated that Facebook gaming was so new. I said, there's a market here, and I immediately said, okay, I gotta go after Facebook gaming. I gotta catch the wave, because this is right when, this is early. Like, Facebook was probably just about 6 months, 7 months old. So I said, I got to catch the wave here of Facebook gaming. So that's where I started. I didn't stream on Twitch besides like back in like 2014. I streamed off my MacBook for like 5 minutes at one point. But as far as like full head of steam was definitely Facebook from the very beginning.
So was that part of your, like, as you see this is a thing, you decide like, okay, I'm going to try this. Is that why you took the time off to just really specifically focus on this and go, head first, get the computer and kind of get into it?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it was just a combination of everything. It was where I was just tired of living out of a suitcase. I was ready for something else as far as, and then I was just ready to go full head of steam into something that I knew that I could do. I just needed the time, the money, and the setup to do it. So there's no plan B. It was always just like, I try not to have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you'll use it. So I go head first into plan A. And here we are. Do
you think it was, like you wanted the time, money, everything to actually go and execute it? But do you think, like, were you thinking of your strategy or thinking of any of the content or like absorbing anything as you're watching the content over the years before you kind of got into it? Do you think that helped, or maybe not so much for what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that a lot of it has to do with like all that time that I was consuming content from when I was just a kid all the way up until now.
Sure.
And watching, YouTube videos, streams, everything helped me become who I am as a content creator now. Because I think it's almost like I took a bunch of just the different ways to entertain, whether that's, trying to be funny, whether that's interactive, whether that's, certain styles of, long form content, whatever, is I took it all and kind of put it together into my own form and then ran with it. Right. So absolutely, I think that from the very beginning, I've just kind of absorbed everything that I've been consuming and then put it into my own form.
And then when you kind of first started out, like, did you already have a strategy of what you were going for? Like, did you have like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing on it, like a game or a game plan that you were playing around the game that you were playing?
So it was definitely a little weird at first, because I started playing. I had like 6 streams of like Fortnite, and they're still on the page to the day. And it was they're atrocious. They're horrible. But I was almost just doing it to do it. Yeah. And then I didn't really have like a plan or idea what I was gonna do. But then I was like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, and I think when I bought the computer, right, I bought it was like $2,000 or something like that. And I was like, okay, if I'm buying this, I got to actually put a lot of time. I'm going to put a lot of energy into this. Like this is going to be the, the driver, right? If I'm going to put $2,000 into a computer, like you're going to start putting a lot of work, 12-hour days, getting up 7 a.m. every single day. Like you're going to go hard at this.
Yeah.
And so then that's when I started doing my research. And back then is like Facebook it didn't have really integration with anything. So like I was trying to stream off of Streamlabs and it wasn't working. So I ended up switching to OBS and it worked. And I just remember just trying to figure out each and everything that I was doing and why I was doing it. Eventually I landed on just becoming a true just competitive player, getting high kills, and using that as the driving force.
And then, I mean, did you have any significant breaks as you were playing it? Like, was it switching over games? Like, I know you played Blackout for a long time, and that was a big game for you. Like, was there anything that stood out for you early on with your content?
So yeah, early on it was like I had like 6 streams of Fortnite. Then Black Ops 4 came out, and for the first like month of Black Ops 4, I just played regular multiplayer like TDM, domination, all that stuff. And it just, I was having zero success. I was streaming the whole time and I was just not having very much success. And, but I stayed consistent. Then I was watching another streamer and he was like a competitive search and destroy player. And his name is Exposed, right? And he streams on Twitch. But I was watching him and he was talking about how he's like, if I took all my energy and put it into Blackout, I really think I could blow up the stream. And at the time I was still playing, multiplayer, right? And I was like, what if I put all my energy into Blackout and truly just, because I already loved Battle Royale, I was just grinding out multiplayer a little bit to get the mechanics of the game down. And I said, well, okay, well, what if I just grind out Blackout? So then I started grinding Blackout, the Battle Royale genre, and that's where we started to get a lot of traction. So
that's awesome. And so was it just like the natural algorithm bringing people in? Like, were people sharing it, talking about it? You mentioned you did some videos, I believe. Like what? Early on, so like
for the most part, it was just natural algorithm, right? So we started off And I'm a big believer in dominating the moment, right? When you have a moment to show or dominate, like you got to be ready for that moment.
Yeah.
And I would take those moments as like, whether that's a tournament nowadays or whatever. Back then, the moment was when I had like 5 viewers at the end of a game. I made sure to win that game, right? All right. If I had 10 viewers at the end of that game, I made sure to win that game, right? So to keep those viewers coming back, keeping them, engaged and so on. So like I would just, it's definitely the natural algorithm from the very beginning. And I made sure that when I had the people in there, that I did everything I can to keep them in there and keep them engaged.
And was that like, even like trying to engage with getting them to comment? Was that like or did you really just focus on the actual gameplay and the content of what you were delivering on it? Was it a mix of the two?
I think it was a mix of the two. From the very beginning, I've always, like, if someone were to say something in chat, I would immediately indulge in trying to actually have a real conversation with them, whether it was about the game, whether it was about their life, my life, anything. I would try to have a conversation about anything and everything that they wanted to have a conversation about, as well as grinding the game, right?
Yeah.
So I made it a very like, I really wanted to be really good, as well as being very interactive with the chat. So I would be popping off in the game as well as having a conversation at the same time. And I think that hybrid is what really kept a lot of people around.
Is there anything that like stands out to you of what made you better at that? Because you're a very, very good player, and very engaging with the chat as well. So like, is there anything that like, thinking about like when you were first starting out, trying to figure that stuff out to kind of where you're at now, obviously doing it a lot more. Maybe it was just the experience of doing it, but like anything stand out in terms of what you've learned along the way from that?
Absolutely. So there was one time when I was playing and I looked over and I had 5 people watching me, and I was like, and I got nervous. I started sweating. I could feel it. My play and gameplay was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? And I could just feel myself getting nervous. But then I kind of, I don't know, I had some type of realization where I was grounding myself, and I go, listen, you're doing what you love to do. You're doing what you love to do, and you're beginning something that is a dream of yours, right? There's no reason to be nervous. Just grind away and just get back to yourself, right? And that was the last time I've ever gotten nervous on stream. So it was just I learning and from that very beginning, just being myself and just realizing that I'm doing something that I love to do, no matter if there's one person in there versus 500 people in there. I'm going to continue just to do what I love to do, and that's it.
Because it is a hard thing, right? Like if you want to, you're trying to dominate the moment, you're trying to, make the most of whatever it is something that's hard when you've got more people watching or whatever, especially if you actually do look at whatever the number is. Like it can be intimidating for it, but it's kind of like, you kind of build up to it. So that's really interesting of how you kind of look at that. And as you've been going through it, like how is maybe your content strategy, even with that's the games or the way that you approach the streams, how has that kind of changed over the years? Because you're not playing Blackout anymore, right? Like how has that developed for you since then?
So yeah, it's actually developed pretty heavily. Back in Blackout, it was more of like I could play solo by myself a lot more than I can now. I can now, but I just don't have as much fun as I did in Blackout. As I do in Warzone playing solo, right? I'm getting back into it now, just because I'm enjoying more of like getting like those high kill, high interaction streams where I'm able to just only focus on the game and only focus on the chat and not have teammates talking to and stuff like that. So, but Blackout, it was so easy just to play solos all day and for 10, 12 hours, whatever, and be super, super interactive, as well as, being a high skilled player. And because of, there was no skill base, and I was on PS4, and like there was just it was a lot more of a easier space for me to basically casual, but at the same time sweat. Yeah. Right. So with Warzone, it's way harder, way more difficult to do, because you got SBMM and like you're playing against sweaties all day. And on the fact is, it's just the way the game is set up. It's like, it's hard for me to, enjoy solos because there's so many campers and stuff like that, man. But, I don't know. It's just it was a tough thing. Now it's a lot of team gameplay, a lot of, duos, trios, duo quads, all those different things, just going for stupid high kill games, and as well as shenanigans in and out of there, talking, doing commentary over over my teammates, like spectating and stuff like that, man. So the content has changed from not so competitive to more casual back in Blackout to more of competitive with a little sprinkle of content in there.
And did you go directly from did you stick with Blackout all the way until Warzone came out? Did you try any other games in between in that time? Did you find any success outside of that when you've tried it?
Yeah, absolutely. So so we started with Blackout, then it was, then Apex came out, and we played quite a bit at Apex. I really enjoyed Apex, and the way the mechanics work of that game is the movement and the gunplay and everything. Really enjoyed Apex. So I played that for a while, but eventually went back to Blackout. And then Modern Warfare, before Warzone came out, just the regular Modern Warfare, came out. And I played that for probably about 2 months, right, without playing Blackout at all. And that was when I got back into regular multiplayer, like team deathmatch, domination, ground war, all those different stuff. I had just a ton of fun just sniping with my buddies in ground war. It was just, I don't know why, we just had so much fun going for nukes and just messing around with each other, and basically we would camp up and just try to get some nukes with the snipers in ground war, man. And but eventually went back to Blackout and just had a hybrid of playing Modern Warfare and Blackout. And then eventually Warzone came out, and then I've been on Warzone since then.
And did you note, was there any specific point within that with maybe it was when Modern Warfare came out, did you notice any significant jumps of viewership or anything, or maybe you played in something, is there anything that helped you or anything that stood out for oh, this was a big moment? I mean, maybe that was even when Warzone ended up coming out.
Yeah. So I think Warzone was definitely was big, right? So I still had the fan that supported me day in, day out, and I was beyond blessed to be in the position that I was in when I was playing Blackout, and a little bit of Apex, as well as before Warzone came out, a little bit of Modern Warfare. But then when Warzone came out, it was just a whole different story, right? We started getting new viewers, a bunch of new people coming into the stream saying what's up, as well as as I advanced my gameplay and got better with the game, more and more people started coming. And I think a lot of people love watching the competitive style gameplay, whether we're playing 2v2, whether we're playing the time kill race and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people enjoy the competitive style, as I said. Yeah. And I think that's what brings a lot of people in.
I know when I've gone to your stream a number of times, and a lot of times you're just kind of hanging out and just chatting, even not even playing the game too.
Yeah.
I guess is that something that you've purposely tied more into your strategy in terms of your content as well? How have you incorporated some of that into it, and what's kind of been some of the effect of that?
So that's actually my favorite time of the day, man. We call it coffee with picnic, right? So, well, here recently I've been way off schedule, right? Now I usually my original schedule, I started at 10 a.m. every day, right? And every day we would sit there in the beginning of the stream, and we just have a conversation before we jump into the game. We talk about anything and everything. Sometimes it lasts up to 2 hours. Sometimes it lasts 30 minutes, right? So we sit in the beginning of the stream and just hang out. We talk about sometimes we talk about Call of Duty. Sometimes we talk about different games. Sometimes we talk about beards. Sometimes we talk about coffee, right? It's all over the place. It's almost like a little short podcast, almost we just sit there and we engage in the community and the fam, and just talk, right? And we just talk about anything and everything. And I think it's just a staple of what makes Penny Basket Gaming and the fam that goes ham, is just because we have we just have that time where we always talk about, I know there's a couple different people I know when their sons and daughters are born, and when their birthday is, and it's amazing, man. I love coffee with Penny, man, and I'll never get rid of it, no matter how big we get.
How did you kind of introduce that into your content in the first place? Was it was that in Warzone when you ended up doing it? Was it people just asking a lot more questions than you even had time to answer within the game, and you wanted to have that opportunity?
Yeah, so honestly, it just kind of naturally started. Even in the Blackout days, we would sit there And we would just we before the stream would start, I would go to like the just the full screen, and I would just chill for a minute. Then we'd start with questions, and like people would ask me some questions, and we ended up just talking and talking and talking. Then of course you have the people come in, it's like, oh, when are you gonna start playing? And then I was like, well, when we get finished this conversation or these questions or whatever.
Right.
So it was just it was almost a natural thing from the very beginning. Then it turned into something such with a name, right? It's like it became like expected every day, right? So people, it was almost like a Q&A time where if you needed a question answered, you can come right now. And the beginning of the stream is the best time to do it. And it started natural and then became like coffee with Picnic, and like I said, it'll never go away, man. I love it.
Did you have like friends that were joining in on it as well, like just even from other aspects of your life, or even family members? Were they part of that, or even just supportive of your content in general as well when you've kind of been going through it?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. So from the very beginning, when I first started streaming, I was living in a house with two of my best friends. Both of them were incredibly supportive of the situation. So they were both in the scene as well. Not as much as I was as far as like watching content and consuming content. But they knew what streaming was. They knew what content creation was and everything. So they definitely supported me to the fullest extent. And then my parents wise, it was, my parents, my mom was 40 and my dad was 50 when they had me. So they're definitely part of the older generation. So it was very difficult for me to try to explain to them that I was going to start streaming myself online, play video games, and
Sure.
leave a job that I had, benefits. I was getting experience. I was salary, all these different things that were setting me up for the future. And it was very difficult to explain with them, especially with them being a part of the older generation. And, but once I showed them, what was going on and what I was doing and different numbers and stuff like that, they completely understood like what I was wanting to do, and it was my dream of doing it.
Yeah.
And backed me in the idea that, hey, you're in your early 20s. When's the best time to do it? In your early 20s, right? So you got plenty of time. Go full head of steam at it.
And was it something like, did you sit down and have a conversation and like, this is my plan and like, this is what I want to do and here's or was it just kind of like you ran into it and showed them afterwards some of the numbers and some of the things from it? Like,
so yeah, it was definitely, so at that point I was already completely out on my own. Like I was already,
Sure.
I was probably about, I guess I was like 22. I was about 22 at that time. So I've been working that other job for about 3 years, 2.5 years. So I'd already had my own house. I was, there was everything. It was like, it wasn't really I needed, although I would love their support from the second that it started.
Sure.
Right. It wasn't I needed their support. So I was going to do it either way. So I just went ahead, went right at it, and then talked to him about it at a later point.
I'm sure that helped too, just to kind of, just pursue it and know that you are somewhat stable. You can keep yourself going, and like you've got all of that kind of together, more or less, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I'm beyond blessed to have that job that I had.
Yeah.
It's because if it would have been any other job, I probably would have lost that job as well as not been able to go back to it. But with that job and the people that in the relationships that I built with the management and the people that own the company and stuff like that I could have gone back to it if streaming would have never worked out. So it was always like a fallback plan. I know I talked about not having a plan B.
Sure.
But it was one of those things where I was fed up with it, man. I had to do something else. So
did you storm out of there and just tell everybody F you, or did you leave it so it was like, all right,
well, it was like, so it was in the beginning, right? Well, it was all peaches and it was amazing at first, but then I came off that job that it was a 911 job, man, where I went out there and it was actually in Denver, right? Denver, beautiful place. It was actually one of my favorite job sites that I've been at. But as far as the actual job itself, it was atrocious. I was working 12 to 15-hour days.
Wow.
It just grinding, man. It was a tough day, and it was a mess out there, absolute mess. So I was basically just saving saving that job site, and I was promised a couple weeks off after that. And because I worked, it was like 3 months straight, didn't take a single day off, 3 months straight, 12 to 15 hours a day, every single day, right? And I was promised those couple weeks, and I finally begin my first week. And 2 days into my first week, they're like, "Hey, when can you mobilize?" They called me and say, "Hey, when can you mobilize?" I said, no, I can't do this. So they're like, "Okay, we'll call you in a couple days." And then they call me in a couple days, and literally a couple days is like 2 days. 2 days after they just called me. And I said, "Listen, I can't do it right now. I simply can't, right? And I need some time, right? And not only some personal mental health time, but as well as like, life stuff, right? I needed to get some stuff. Like I hadn't seen my family in months. I hadn't seen any of my friends in months. I hadn't taken care of like, personal things. I had to do some things for my license at that time. There's just so many different stuff that I needed to do that I was not getting the allowed time to do. And I basically, they were like, "Okay, well, if you're going to take any more time off, you're going to have to take a leave of absence." And I said, "Okay, send me the paperwork." So I signed the paperwork, and that's when I was like, "Okay, well, what can I do while I'm chilling?" Right. And then that's when I bought the computer. I was like, "Well, it's time to put my head down and grind."
And what was your kind of schedule like? I know you mentioned, like 10, 12 hours with that. Was it just like purely streaming? Like, did you spend time thinking about like where else could go with it, researching anything else as you were creating, or was it just like right away, I'm just going to start streaming as much as I can, get experience with it?
Yeah. So in the very beginning, it was definitely, it was a little bit of just wanting to put a bunch of time into it, but as well as doing my research offline, right? So at the time, as we talked a little bit about before earlier, was like Facebook didn't really have much information on it, right? So I was doing so much different research. There was not many YouTube videos. There's not many, anything that I could find that were really like helping me out as far as like how to get alerts set up, how to get my follower goal set up. So I would end up going into other people's streams. I remember going into It's Wicked his stream, and he had the follower goal at the top. And I said, "How do you do that, man? You got to help me figure out how to do this." And it ended up being really, really simple. All I had to do was pop it out, copy and paste, and put it in a browser source. Super simple, but I didn't know how to do that. And I sent him stars, and I said, how do you do this? And he said, it was so simple at the time that he didn't even understand that. He was like, "What are you trying to ask? I don't understand. I don't understand." And eventually I got it out of him, and I figured it out. And it's just little things like that, man. It's just, I would put the time in. I put the time in the day, 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. But then when I'm laying in bed or afterwards, like I'm doing my research, I'm watching other streams, seeing what they got, watching if they got alerts, seeing if they got overlays, seeing what type of content they're creating, especially on Facebook, because it was such a new space. That I was very curious as if the content would be different on Facebook versus if on Twitch or a different platform. And ultimately, it turned out to be pretty close to the same, but there is a different demographic, right? So I definitely, it's a little older of a demographic, I would say. And I would, and I just took that into account and started, I tried to mature my content a little bit.
That's awesome. And what do you think, like, as you've been doing it, obviously you've had a lot of time, even with your own thing now, maybe you're still working on some of it, but like, what do you think some of the most vital skills that you've had, or like maybe something that's helped you stand out over, these years now as a creator on the platform and continuing to, create and thrive?
Yeah. So, actually we talked about this on stream the other day. Is one thing that streaming taught me that I didn't even realize it was going to teach me was patience, right? Is patience in the amount of people that ask the same question a day, or like I get people coming in my stream, right? And they say, "How do you answer the same question all day, every day? Like, does it not get annoying?" And I'm like, listen, 95% of streaming is answering the same question over and over, right?
Sure.
So, I think streaming taught me so much patience. I think a couple of my past life experiences, helped me with that as well, as far as the caretaker job and working with disabled people. I think that helped for sure. But I think streaming really taught me a lot of patience with multiple different avenues, as far as, answering the same question, when somebody doesn't understand something or like helping somebody with streaming setup or something like that. I think patience was a big one for me.
And I mean, I'm sure you get asked a lot as well. Like, do you have any advice for creators that are out there or somebody who's trying to get into this space?
Yeah, man. So for one, you got to be yourself. Like, there's a lot of people that try to, there's a couple different exceptions out there, like your Dr. Disrespect, your Kingslayer and stuff like that. But, for me, man, being yourself, there's a lot of people that get on and they put on almost like an imposter syndrome or something along those lines, where they become someone else when they're on the video or on live or on a video. And that just, and I'm telling you, man, if you're not yourself, people will recognize it from the very beginning. I don't care if you don't even have a webcam, they can hear it in your voice, right? So being yourself, being consistent. A lot of people are like, well, I can only stream 2 hours a night. Well, make it the same 2 hours every night, right? Mm-hmm. Be consistent. And as well as, a lot of the thing too is like I was in a different position in the very beginning where I was able to just go full head of steam at it. A lot of people are not in that position. So they think they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to quit my job right off the bat and become a streamer. And I always refer completely against that, man, because you never know. Streaming is very difficult. It's a lot more than just sitting here in front of a camera and playing video games. And a lot of people don't understand that until they actually try that themselves. So one of the things I say, don't quit your day job, man. Don't quit your day job. Make this a hobby. And make it so that, if you really like your hobby, then, and your hobby starts to make you money, then you can start making decisions after that. But, be yourself, man. Be consistent and don't quit your day job.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of different positions a lot of people come into. And that's one of my favorite things about this podcast, honestly, is like having the chance to sit down and hear some of the journeys and the stories, because it is very different for so many different people. And listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing a bit about your story. If anybody else wants to find you, hear more about everything you got to say, what's the best place? What's the URL?
Yeah, so right now the main streams are on Facebook, facebook.com/PicNickBasket. And then, of course, you got all the socials, man. It's just PicNickBasket on everything. Twitter with an underscore at the very end. So it's PicNickBasket_. And then on Instagram, it's also with an underscore. We're active on all the socials day in, day out, mostly on Facebook, daily streams every single day, 10 to 12 hours a day. And yeah, man, Stone, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure. Absolutely. Great dude. Check him out. And if you guys want to hear any more podcasts as well, you can always find those at pipeline.gg. But thank you so much for joining in. And check him out, guys. Thank you.